Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with Edward Castañeda. So, Edward is an award-winning executive with a remarkable track record in telecommunications, engineering, and IT leadership. Edward was named Senior Manager of the Year at a Fortune 50 company, which is T-Mobile. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's known for orchestrating some incredible market turnarounds regionally and nationally. At T Mobile, as the Director of Engineering Operations, he's not just overseeing projects, he's managing a customer base of over 5 million people and leading a team of over 250 skilled professionals. He has impacted connecting people in major US cities like Miami, Philadelphia, and Denver. Edward isn't just good at what he does, he's a master collaborator, seamlessly linking engineering, project management, business development, and construction to deliver top notch technology solutions and transitions. His record speaks for itself. He is the visionary behind significant network operations, construction projects, and performance enhancements that have left a lasting mark on the industry. But here's the thing about Edward, his heart is in mentoring the next generation of leaders. He's all about hard work, integrity, adaptability, inclusivity, and empathy. And Edward's world, setting the bar high isn't just about meeting targets, it's about setting an example for others to follow. His exceptional communication skills and knack for building relationships and strategic alliances truly set Edward apart. Whether it's with networks, stakeholders, or partners, Edward knows how to connect, inspire, and drive success. That's Eddie for you, a leader, a mentor, and a visionary all rolled into one. Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you, Manish. It's an honor and a blessing to be here with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So now, before we dive into some interesting questions, I would love to learn more about you and learn more about your journey. How did you get to this level of success? Tell us, walk us down the memory lane, and tell us your story.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm a second generation American. My parents migrated from Colombia to New York City, where I was born. I was born in Queens, New York, and then they migrated down to Miami. And so I was actually, I'd say, most of my life raised in the great area of Miami. And from there, just like anything back in the 80s and 90s, being Hispanic, there was a lot of trying to figure out what you're doing with yourself, and that was a very growing atmosphere, and a lot of temptation, let's just say. And I was lucky enough to go into the military to try to get some maturity and get some focus. So I joined the Marine Corps in 1995, where I started to get exposed to technology. So that's really where I started getting into technology. I was a radio operator in the Marine Corps. I did some training on microwave, and I also did some on-the-job training with satellites. And so then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I used that knowledge to try to get a job. Started from the ground up as installing in the installation side of batteries and kind of network equipment in the central offices. And then at that time, there was a little company starting out in Miami called Metro PCS, and a lot of people were able to migrate over to Metro PCS from the company that I was working with. And I was lucky enough that someone gave me an opportunity and brought me into Metro PCS. First as a contractor and then as a field technician. And then as a field technician, I kind of worked through the ranks. I went up from a senior field technician to a switch technician to doing traffic engineering, translation engineering, and then I finally hit my first people management position back in 2013. And I never looked back. It's something that I was exposed to in the Marine Corps, and it really was I would say it's my calling, and I've focused in that space ever since. So pretty much a decade of looking into how to lead people, how to inspire people, and it's really been a great journey, I would say, this past decade in that people management space. So that's in a nutshell. That's been my journey in my professional career.
That's absolutely fantastic. One thing I noticed is that I talk to a lot of veterans, people who have served, and of course it's an honor to serve. But also I understand, transitioning from that life to a civilian life is not always easy, and a lot of people find it challenging. How was that experience for you?
It is challenging, and it is a shift in mindset. There's some things that um, there's some skill sets that transition very well over from the military career to to kind of the civilian life, and there's some things that you can't really bring them over. You can't really transition them over. Matter of fact, some of them might be a hindrance, and really there's nothing I would say wrong with some of those things. It's just the way they're framed up. And so I'll just give you an example. The military, there's really no time to kind of convince people. You need to be very direct. You kind of are setting expectations. There's lives at stakes, by and large. And so then people in the military team tend to be very direct. And unfortunately, that's sometimes not welcomed in the business world. So you have to find how to be direct, but reframe it in a manner that isn't taken as being aggressive or offensive. And those are skill sets that really you need to practice, where you can kind of marry that directness and being soft at being direct, if that's even a concept. But that's really where the intersection for you to be successful in making that transition is really softening your direction and the way that you kind of maneuver in the business world outside of the military. It's completely different. The aggressiveness is still there, but the apparentness of being aggressive needs to be kind of held back.
Yeah. That's. I mean, even outside the military, like communication, human communication is such an important skill, and most of us continue to learn that throughout our lives. One thing I notice about you is like you are truly a people person. Like you really want to connect with people, and I guess this is what reflects in your main work as well, which is telecommunication, and which is all about connecting people. So was that this quality innate in you, or did you develop it? Did you get it in the military? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, going back to how I started, saying that I'm a second generation American. I don't know if it's in all minority cultures, but in the Hispanic culture, we love being together. We tend to, family's a big thing, community is a big thing. We love to throw parties. We love to be together and be around people. And I think that was the starting point. My parents were the family that always had people coming over for parties, for holidays, and there was always good music and good food and people just having a good time. And you kind of take that and you extrapolate that kind of concept of bringing people together. And for me, it kind of resonated when I got into the business world, and in that, yeah, you get people to come together to collaborate. You get people to come together to talk about new ideas. You bring people together, just over lunch, just to see how people are doing, and those things really start fostering really, really good conversations that lead into really like innovative and creative ideas. And it's one of those things that just that concept that I took from seeing my parents, how they were just in just my culture, and how do I bring that into the business world. It's really helped me a lot, because it's one of those things that, to your point, people love being connected. People love talking, and sharing. Granted, sometimes the groups are very big and sometimes they're very small. But at the end of the day, you tend to feel like you want to share something, right? It's few and far in between people that don't want to share anything and don't want to interact with anyone. And it's figuring out that sweet spot and kind of bringing that to your team, to your peers. I think it will help businesses moving forward, because it's definitely helped me move through and navigate in my industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, these skills, a lot of people think, they tend to focus on sharpening their sort of technical skills and getting more degrees, more certificates, and things of that nature. But I think, just this innate ability to communicate with people, have conversations, and actually enjoy being with people actually translates into real professional success, isn't it? Like tangible results. Like in terms of new ideas getting converted into business opportunities, new ideas, resulting in more professional growth in a corporate setting. Isn't like what has been your experience in that regards?
So for me, I think the more that I've had an opportunity to get into newer groups and kind of just diversify, I would say, my portfolio of friends, of colleagues, of books that I read, movies that I watch, music that I hear. I mean, you can kind of run down the list. It certainly has benefited me because especially now, the world is extremely small compared to just a decade ago, right? And so then
Mm-hmm.
it is one of those things that you find a lot of differences, and those are the things that I would say that kind of are fun. Like, oh yeah, this is great. You're learning something new, but as you start expanding, the way that you look at the world and the way that you experience the world, you actually start finding a lot more commonality to these people, and you actually are able to connect with them at a deeper level rather than just superficially. So
Mm-hmm.
just by me saying, just kind of giving you a little bit of background of my family, I can guarantee you that people watching here can probably resonate to a degree that someone in their family, maybe it wasn't their parents, but maybe it was their uncles or aunts, grandparents, that were like the person who connected everyone, who was that glue, right? And so then I think that you'll start seeing that more and more, and you start appreciating people and diversity more as you start really starting seeing that we underline there's some universal traits to all of us, and then that brings us together, and it definitely helps the conversations move forward in any aspect once you have that common ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing I've learned, one of my mentors told me that humans are the true wealth of any organization, but also humans are the most challenging aspect of management. So, how do you deal with these issues that often come up while managing people? Like, how do you deal with difficult situations? How do you deal with challenging conversations?
Yeah, so I think there's two things I want to highlight there. So how do I deal with difficult situations, and then how do I deal with difficult conversations,
Sure.
right? So
Yes.
let's
Yes.
so let's difficult conversations. You have to you have to take them on head on, right?
Hmm.
Now you have to plan for them. You have to have the timing right. These are all things that are very important, but you can't shy away from them. As a leader, it is my duty to have a difficult conversation, because 9 times out of 10, that difficult conversation revolves around getting someone or a team in compliance to what's needed by the organization or what's expected by the organization. Um, Outside of compliance, it would be performance, right? Is this something that is hindering a person's performance? At the end of the day, I've signed up for the hard job of coaching people to get them to perform at their best level. And I understand that sometimes that means highlighting areas where they have opportunity. And then it's up to me on how do I frame that in a manner that doesn't discourage the person that I'm talking to, rather encourage them. At the same time, have them understand that, hey, this is an area where there needs to be improvement. So to summarize that, difficult conversations need to be planned, orchestrated, and timed, but they have to happen. Now, difficult situations are kind of in the same boat. I tend to step up to them. I tend to be the one that likes to volunteer for the impossible task, and hey, this is going to be really hard, and who knows what it's going to look like, and well, sign me up, because I find that very fun. I find those challenging, and what I would say is every time that I've done that, and the people that have also volunteered with me, um, we end up being very close at the end of the project or the end of the adventure. We've learned so much. Even if the project doesn't take off, you learn so much during that journey, and you make some really, really good connections with people, sometimes lifelong after that. And as you know, what one thing that I've learned, which is extremely important in any industry, is networking, having people that kind of understand where you've been and where you're going because they've been there as well. And then as you go through these projects and you make those connections, and kind of you maybe you disperse after the project, it's fine. Like I said, those connections are lifelong pretty much after that. And you shouldn't back away from any challenge or any difficult situation. You should probably meet it head on and see what you learn about yourself through that challenge.
No, those are great words of wisdom. And one more point I want to touch upon is which I notice in your behavior. Like you're really big on diversity and inclusion and sort of talking to all kinds of people. So once again, sometimes I find many people are good at communication, but they are good at communication with people who look like them or who talk like them or who have the same sort of background. How do you deal with connecting with people from diverse background, people who may not even know your world professionally or personally? How do you get in and into a deeper conversation with those kind of people, and how has it affected your growth, diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I think for me, my journey in just maturing, right, just getting older. The older I got, the less I focused on um, me and what I was, right. So I was a Hispanic male from Miami. Parents are Colombian. The less that I worried about that, or the less that I brought that to the forefront of the conversation, the more open I was to go to anyone and just talk to them. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter anymore, right? I was just a person who wanted to talk to another person, and hopefully I learned from them and they learned from me. And at first it was a little uncomfortable, because you kind of tend to want to say who you are and kind of wear it on your sleeve and be proud, and those are all great things. Um, what I noticed is that when I stopped making that my primary focus of who I was, um, it was really easy just to go to anyone and just say hello and just start talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I would say I had to get more comfortable with who I was and accepting, and not necessarily have a need to parade it around or showcase it. And once I was really comfortable with myself, it became really easy for me to just talk to anyone. And going back to an earlier statement, the more that I talk to people from different backgrounds, the more I realize we're more of the same. There's a lot of things that we have so in common. That those things just become the outliers of me being Hispanic, my parents from Colombia, and more so like, hey, we had people that loved us. We our backgrounds in schooling, especially minorities. I mean, minorities have a very special kind of story to say that yeah, there's some nuance, but everyone who's a minority understands a certain struggle. And we can all kind of use that as a foundation in a conversation.
That's absolutely fantastic. I think those pieces of advice, if somebody can implement in their life, they'll see profound, like positive results, in my opinion. So thanks for sharing that. Now let's switch gears and talk about a little bit of technology and the industry you are in. You've had an amazing run of more than 2 3 decades in telecom. How have you seen the industry change over the years? What are some of the key areas that you have seen like transform, and what are you excited about the future?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in the industry long enough to see a few changes, right? So we went from what traditional step switching analog days to I remember when I was a switch tech, I worked on what the Lucent 5E switch, and it used to be rows of equipment, and now it's a much smaller, and then much smaller like base of equipment. And then we went into like edge routing when we started doing calls through like Cisco routers and Juniper routers, and it completely changed how I was looking at viewing the world. And I would say that it was humbling to me, because I was able to kind of get the understanding of, hey, every maybe 5 to 10 years in this industry, there's a major change. There's little changes here and there, but every 5 to 10 years, there's something that I would say just completely changes the game in telecom, right? So for us, the last biggest change, like I said, is when we went from kind of like that old way of routing calls through a type of switch. Now we're doing it through routers. I would say now the biggest shift is the introduction of AI, cloud computing. That is like now the new industrial revolution within telecommunications, because what that's doing now, it's allowing teams to, before we used to, kind of expand whatever our workload was basically by just hiring more people, right? It was that was always the thing. Like if you have a project or whatever, you just hire more people. You either hire them internally or you outsource them, but still it's people doing the task. And now we have the opportunity to bring that human intelligence into our computations through AI, right? And so then a lot of these mundane tasks that we hired a lot of people to do, and really it's not benefiting anyone to do the same thing over and over and over again. We can now insert AI and we can kind of do these tasks. So I would say that the way that the future looks for telecom with AI, it's extremely exciting in the sense that, hey, we're bringing a new technology, and this is going to catapult efficiencies and effectiveness, and it's also going to separate these people who are not using AI, right? So there is going to be a vast separation, in my opinion, from the people who adopt AI and then master AI, and the people who either are slow to adopt AI and just never master it, or just don't adopt it at all. Those people, I think, will eventually, unfortunately, will not be in the industry, and those companies will not last either, because this industry is becoming smaller and smaller. We're extremely competitive for the same people, for the same market share, and there's not really much to change now. You have so many subscribers, but now what's going to happen is, how do you get those subscribers, and then how do you expand that subscriber base to other things, other platforms that you can bring your company to, and say, hey, not only can I provide you a phone, and not only can I provide you, internet service, but I can provide you a platform where you can, basically start a business and then scale that business to whatever you want based off, our capabilities. That's what AI and deep data is going to be doing in my industry, I think, in the future.
That's those are great insights, and I completely agree. AI is going to disrupt pretty much every aspect of our life and business. But also, I want to highlight, just your sort of focus on understanding the sort of the wave of change, because a lot of people, they get comfortable, and in every industry it's like that. Like, even if we look at the advent of internet, and then the smartphone, and various like technology waves, a lot of people, they just are not comfortable with that change. And you mentioning that, okay, the industry changed previously from analog to digital and now going to AI, tells me that how focused you are and sort of keep learning. And I think that's a trait like most people miss out on. They tend to not focus on what is happening in the future. Has that been like a comfortable feeling for you, or how do you overcome that discomfort of going into an unknown territory altogether?
So I would say there's two major events in my life that I would think that helped me, like adopt this kind of, position. So the first one is my father was he was a mechanic, and so he started, fixing cars. And when I remember when I was little and I would see him fixing cars, he would fix cars that had carburetors in them, right? And so then all of a sudden, the carburetor went into the fuel injection kind of motor. And I saw my father having to learn quickly how to fix cars that now were no longer using a carburetor, but now using a fuel injection, kind of component.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also saw him adapt in where there wasn't a standard, to be a mechanic, where all of a sudden one day you have to be certified, right? I think the certifications like ASC certification, something like that. And this is a man that didn't speak English, right? And so he
Mm-hmm.
had to learn, and he had to learn everything, and he had to take the test, and he had to pass the test. And taking that example, and then kind of also in the military, you have to adjust very quickly. You get a marching order to go somewhere, and in the middle of the order, you get told to go do something else, or you get told not, hey, you're not going over there anymore. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's that constant change. I guess it was me visualizing change for someone who I looked up to, which was my father, and then experiencing that constant change when I was in the military, that I realized I can't, I cannot keep like my feet on the ground thinking that I'm never going to move one way or the other, that I really need to be nimble, not just, just in my mindset, but also in how I look at things. So I think those were the two things that really kind of solidified the way that I kind of maneuver and navigate just life in general. And it's been very helpful for me, because I think what happens is sometimes we get caught in bad situations, and we're just fixed on this situation, and we don't see past the situation, and so we never move, we never grow, there's never any progress. You can kind of use that example and say, hey, that's such with your teams, with your projects, with anything. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'd say in summary, I've learned how to kind of cut my losses very quickly, and not take it personal, not be too caught up in something that's very tactical, and really focus on the overall strategy and the overall goal, right? So the overall goal for my dad was to stay employed so he can provide food, for his family. The overall goal in the military was to keep moving, to complete the mission, and obviously, and to survive. And such is in the same in business, right? We need to keep moving in a manner that keeps us relevant and that keeps us viable, because we do impact lives as well, right? As a leader, it is my duty to get my team through this change, because if not, then I'm impacting their life, right? If they can't
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on, moving forward with me, then that's a problem, and that I feel like I failed them in not getting them ready and developed for that next challenge.
Yeah, those are again, every time I talk to you, I get new nuggets which are invaluable. I mean, they come from real experience in the world, and the stories that you share are so powerful. Um, but the last point you made, let's get into that. Like, you are really big on mentoring people. You're really big on like sort of guiding them. And really caring for their long-term goals, and that's pretty unique. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, was this also your experience of learning from your dad, or in the military, or, like, how has it impacted your life? And I'm sure we can talk about how you were mentored by your mentors as well.
Yeah, I think the caring for, like, kind of the very broader thing of caring for people definitely came from my family. But I would say, kind of honing that into a specific individual, and really putting a lot of time and effort and caring into one individual to see them grow. That actually didn't happen until after I left the military, where someone actually saw something in me, and they wanted to mentor me. So I think the examples that I've had throughout my life up until that point was very broad, very I don't want to say superficial, but they were kind of just general knowledge, general wisdom. Hey, don't do this. If you touch the stove, you're gonna burn your hand, type thing.
Mhm.
But it became very apparent to me once this individual um, reached out to me and said, I see something in you, and I really would like to mentor you. And I explained to him. I said, well, why? Why do you think I need mentoring? And he basically said, I think you're great. I think you have a lot of potential, but I also know that if something was to happen to this company tomorrow, you won't be competitive, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that you don't have, and you don't even know how to speak the language. And
Mm-hmm.
so then just that level of caring and level of insight from this individual towards me, um, really changed the way that I kind of wanted to look at how I maneuver with my teams. And so then I feel like I have to pay that forward. This person
Mm-hmm.
had no one asked him to. I mean, it was just on their own will that they said, "Hey, I'd like to help Eddie." And I felt that that was such a powerful thing for me and in my life that it would be. I would be ashamed of myself if I didn't try to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I do have, kind of that broader with the team direction development. Hey, there's some generic things that I put out there for the teams to obviously grow, but then I want to take that to a deeper level with individuals, right? And so then I think that that is to me, the most beautiful relationship connection that you could have, with an individual, because you're helping them grow. You're almost, as close as being a guardian and a parent to a person without actually being their guardian and parent. And you
Mm-hmm.
really want to wish them well. You really want to give them good advice. You really want to give them wisdom. And not only that, it doesn't end with that. You also want to give them. You also want to be their sponsor. You also want to be their ally. When you're in a room and they're talking about these individuals, you want to be able to be the one that says, "Hey, I know that person, and this person is great. I could vouch for that person. I can." You really want to move them up in the company because you're using the credit that you have of who you are, and you're vouching for a person who probably doesn't have that level of credit yet. And again, that's, to me, it's one of those things that I feel, because someone did that with me, and they consider, and there's others throughout my career that have done that with me afterwards. I feel like it would be a disservice if I didn't do that. And so then now what I do with so I have mentors as well. I don't have one particular mentor for one particular for everything, right? So I would say that I still go to my parents for a lot of that life wisdom, but I would say that I definitely have mentors that are specific to certain things, like my career, maybe like my education, maybe something that I'm trying to do, as a hobby or whatever. I have mentors in all of these spaces. But I think, when it comes to that, still like that life wisdom, I still reach out to my parents, and no one's beaten them yet as far as the advice that they've given me. So
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, what one thing I say is like good people find good people. So I think that is really truly reflective of who you are as a person, who you attract in your life, and how you have been able to make an impact on others. So I've witnessed that firsthand, and it's been so great to know you and learn from you, and work alongside with you. So thank you so much for everything. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us if people want to reach out and connect with you, what is the best way they can do that?
yeah, just reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Edward Castañeda, and definitely I'll definitely reach out. And again, I'm really here to help. So feel free to reach out to me, and I hope that I can help you.
Awesome. So we'll put that link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Manush. It was a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.